So, I'm Dr. Eugene Blankenship. I'm the senior pastor of the Lead Academy program, and of course the Christian Worship Center that the Lead Academy and the Martha Mary House, which are female program for addictions and dysfunctional anxiety, depression, and so forth. And folks that just struggle with anything in life, that are having functional issues, dysfunctional issues rather, throughout their lives in any area of life, whether it's family, familial or occupational or just with friends, you're having trouble. Maybe you've had trouble with keeping a job. I don't know. Maybe you have trouble with finances. That's what we're here for. We're here to help people become what God intended them to be, to reach their intended level of significance in life as far as God's plan for their lives. So I want to share today with you concerning the thought that perspective improves with distance. And what I mean by perspective improves with distance is that a lot of times we are blind to what occurs in our own front yard. And what do I mean by that? Well, have you ever had your spouse or a significant other tell you something about yourself, and maybe you even knew it was true, but you pretty much just brushed it off? You pretty much ignored it. Maybe your spouse told you, I've noticed that you have trouble listening when people try to tell you something important. And you may even know that's true, but you'll look at her and say, honey, you're right. But it never really sinks in because she's too close to you. And those who are close to us, many times, we have a habit of blocking out some of the things they say, especially if they're uncomfortable for us. So if I'm in a time of crisis in my life, or crises, and people are coming to me that are close to me in life, people that are in my family that know me best, and they try to share information with me that can help me and maybe even save my life, certainly make my life a lot more successful and functional. It's hard for me to hear. It's hard for that to sink in because they're in my front yard, so to speak. But with perspective, well, perspective improves with distance. So people that I don't even know that well, maybe they're just an acquaintance, might come up to me and say, hey, did you know you have a hard time listening to people? And I think, wow, that's a revelation to me. And the truth is, my significant other, my wife, or a family member that's really close to me, that lives in my family unit, in my own home, told me the same thing, but I didn't get it because they were too close to me. But this acquaintance, this practically someone who's a stranger, says it, and I get it because perspective many times improves with distance. Another good example might be your kids. Your kids will keep doing the same things over and over that you tell them not to do. They'll keep trashing their room. They'll keep ignoring your directions about whom they ought to hang out with, whom they ought to speak to on the telephone or on social media. And you're like, why do they do that? Well, because you love them and they know you love them. And many times that same love acts as a buffer between them and reality. The reality that what they're doing may very well be extremely bad for them or even dangerous for them. So you're close to them. But they may hear the same thing from somebody else at school, even a friend their own age. Maybe that friend's 12 years old. Here you are 30, 40, 50 years old, espousing, sharing wisdom with them, and they don't get it because you're in their front yard. But a 12-year-old kid that they haven't known maybe but 9 weeks in school, they just met, they're in a new school even, perhaps, they get it. It sinks in because perspective many times improves with distance. I want to share from Matthew chapter 13, and I'll start with verse 53. This is the English Standard Version of the Bible, and it reads, "And when Jesus had finished these parables, he went away from there, and coming to his hometown, he taught them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? When then did this man get all these things?" And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown and in his own household." And he did not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief. Those folks were in his front yard. And it says that they were offended. They took offense at him. And this word, scandalizo in Greek, for offense, means that they had no respect for. In fact, it was repugnant to them as far as his claims that he made concerning wisdom and the wisdom that he shared. They were just offended by it simply because they knew him, they knew his family, because he was close to them. They were familiar with him. And many times what we're most familiar with, we build a wall between us and that thing or that person. And perspective actually goes downhill. It doesn't grow, it shrinks with proximity. But with distance, all of a sudden, things become clearer to us. So in our lives, if there are things we need to change about ourselves, it's harder to hear those things about ourselves from people who are close to us, who live in our own front yard. Sometimes it's easier to hear those things from total strangers. The fact is, those closest to us many times know us best. So we have to discipline ourselves. We have to constantly and consciously inform ourselves to understand and to get that there are those around us that love us enough and want to help us enough and want to see us be successful, that although what they say may wound us, we need to listen to it. We need to not build a barrier, a wall between us and the truth about us, because we can be very much like the man in the Word that looks into the mirror and walks away forgetting that man which he saw because we're uncomfortable with that man that we see. So we need to open up to that. And so I just want to share that with you. Perspective improves with distance many times. And be careful not to be blind about what occurs in your own front yard. Allow people to speak into your life, and those people being the ones that are closest to you and that know you best. Be blessed.